Hi everyone, hope everyone's well and safe. Welcome to episode 3 of my story. Luckily for us, we've been joined by ex-professional footballer Sam Rents. Thanks Sam for taking the time to catch up with me and pass on your experiences to everyone. Hope you're well, mate.
Yeah, all good, thank you. Keeping safe, trying to keep busy.
Good, mate, good. Your massage business going, obviously not. I see your stuff you're putting up online at the moment, providing exercises and stretches to everyone. I bet you're clutching at the bit to get back into that, aren't you?
Yeah, frustrating time really. Obviously, it's all been put on hold, through these times. But yeah, just trying to help people as much as possible, kind of keep active and making sure that they're recovering right. Everyone seems to have found like a new love for running or working out from home. So yeah, just making sure everyone looks after himself and recovers as well.
It's something that I've been using for my running, mate. As I'm getting older, I'm getting stiffer. So I've been doing a couple of your videos, which have been helping. And so anyone that wants any advice or anything, check out Massage Hub. We'll put it on our link as well. But yeah, mate, thanks for joining me. Like I said, just want to sort of educate people and give people a chance to listen to your experiences as well as other people we've been interviewing. And so let's just kick it off, mate, with sort of how you first got into football and where you got picked up and scouted, obviously from a grassroots level into Brighton Academy.
Yeah, so I think probably similar to most young lads, sort of as soon as I could walk, from a young age, I kind of had a ball at my feet and would just kick anything and walk around with a ball as much as I could. So I kind of just fell into it naturally, really. In terms of getting picked up by Brighton, I was taking part just in a Saturday soccer school at a local park, just going down Saturday morning for a couple of hours, and the coach there obviously saw something in me and spoke to a scout at Brighton who come down and just watch a couple of the sessions at the weekends. And I went on a 6-week trial at Brighton's Centre of Excellence. This is probably year 5, I think. So just coming towards the end of primary school, end of year 5, start of year 6. And yeah, as I say, 6-week trial. So you go along a couple of evenings a week, couple of hours training, go along on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning, playing a couple of the games. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, they, luckily for me, wanted me to stay on, joined my age group. And yeah, so back then Brighton, it was a centre of excellence as opposed to an academy. They was in League One at the time. So yeah, they didn't have, all the facilities that they do now and whatnot. And it wasn't classed as an academy at that stage, but it was, pretty much ran exactly the same, but it was called a Centre of Excellence.
So during your time there at the Centre of Excellence, obviously now they use the word academy. When did it change to an academy during your time there before you made it into the first team?
It changed. So as I kind of like went up through the age groups, got offered a YTS, so like a scholarship. So that was, when you leave school after your GCSEs, when you leave secondary school, I knew that I was going into like full-time football as a YTS, so that youth training scheme they used to call it then. And the year group that I did that was the last year that it was like a 3-year YTS. So I think everyone now it's like a 2-year, so you do like 2 years YTS, and then you'd either sign professionally or get released and move on. So yeah, it was the last year of that. So kind of in my time as a YTS, that's when all the other football clubs and Brighton included were turning into academy. So yeah, it didn't really affect like my age group too much because we were already like in the system. But anything after that year then moved to 2 years, and it was then in an academy.
Right, yeah. And while you done the full stint at Brighton up until obviously you made your professional debut, and that's very rare back then and even now. So tell me about sort of that experience and how much support you had from family and friends, and how proud you were when you made your professional debut.
Yeah, it's obviously, you're buzzing. Like, young lad, I think I made my debut when I was 19. Manager was Mark McGee, a Scottish guy, and it was Bristol City away. And I come on at half time for the second half. So, obviously I remember it like it was yesterday. Come on, we actually lost the game 1-0. I think like my first bit of action was a reckless challenge, got booked. So then I was a little bit nervous, to be fair, but it came through that. And then Mark McGee got sacked pretty much after that game. So
You got him a sack.
So I can't have done that well. But it actually, and then after that, Dean Wilkins, who was our youth team manager, got the job. And from then I kind of found like a regular spot, which was quite nice. So I made my full debut at Millwall away at the Den the following week. So it didn't get any easier. But in terms of those two kind of like senior debuts, that was obviously you're just buzzing. You're kind of on cloud nine. You think you're now a proper professional. I was playing, it was League One. Just kind of like, as you'd imagine, really, like a great sense of, of pride. You feel like you've kind of like got to that and got over that hurdle. I'd always been quite lucky, to be honest. Like, my family never really pressured me into anything. They were always like very supportive. So that was just kind of like naturally going on behind the scenes, but no pressure. And I'd always had like a close group of friends from school. So it was nice.
Just touching on that, obviously, you touched on the support from your family in terms of when players get offered a YTS and they leave school and then they go down the football route and not continue with education. How did your family feel about that? Were they fully supportive? Like you said, they didn't put much pressure on you, but did they sort of voice their opinion to you to make you go into it with your eyes wide open? And what sort of things did your family and friends say to you then?
Yeah, they were pretty. I can't really remember having a conversation. I think like they knew that I loved football so much. It was never even going to be a debate, or it wasn't even going to be a conversation. Like, that's what I wanted to go and do. I don't think they would have tried to change my mind. They probably asked more of the questions to the coaches at Brighton at the time. Will Sam continue education and studying while he's doing the YTS, etc., stuff that as like a young lad who just wants to play football, you wouldn't have even thought about. From them, again, I was pretty lucky. They weren't really pushy in terms of making me go and do it or trying to persuade me otherwise. So I think I was quite lucky with that. And as I say, I think like it was just never really going to be a debate. They could see how much I wanted to go and do it.
Coming through all those age groups, you must have obviously come across a lot of players that were released or let go or left for whatever reason. So obviously you went the full spectrum. So what do you think sort of made you not necessarily better than anyone else, but what sort of stood out for yourself compared to others? Like, was it mindset, application, ability?
I think it was, I'm left-footed, so that probably helped a little bit as well. I think out of my age group, I was the only left-footed player to sign professionally. It's hard. I think out of my age group, there was 3 of us who signed professionally. Dean Cox, who went on to have a really good career, played a lot of league games, and Jake Robinson, who's at Billericay now. Again, a lot of league games, a lot of league goals. We were the 3, and my best mate didn't get offered a contract. So it's hard. You spend every day together for 3 years in the YTS, and then you literally, it's like all like the old stories that you hear of whatever level. You're sat in a changing room, you get called up one by one, and then you're either signing as a professional, dreams come true, or or getting released and you know and going to do whatever in the world. So yeah, it's like a crazy time really. I was obviously lucky enough to get a deal. I was always like, my attitude was always really good. I always worked as hard as I could. That was kind of came naturally to me. And yeah, I think just as a left-footed player, a left back, I was good technically, and I guess at the time it was something that they could see that they could work with. Perhaps not thinking I'd break into the first team as early as I did, but you know, something that they could work with and see what could happen in the future.
I think that helped. Obviously, not saying that it helped with Mark McGee getting the sack, because obviously he gave you your debut, but with your youth team manager coming in as first team, and then you really kicking on from there, do you think that had a big influence on how long you played in the first team at Brighton?
I think definitely. I think like Mark McGee, gave me like my full debut, so I'd always be grateful for that. And it was unfortunate that, you know, he did get sacked, even though it looked like it obviously, you know, worked in my favour. I think the fact that I broke into the first team when he was there, he obviously had some faith in me. I think I probably got more of a consistent opportunity with Dean Wilkins, because he was the youth team manager. So yeah, of course that played. You know, that played in our favour. A few of the boys from, you know, he came through the youth team, started that first game against Millwall and kind of, you know, continued and got a bit of a run in the first team, which possibly we wouldn't have done if he wasn't there. So yeah, I think there was that element of luck, but you know, once you're there, you know, if you're not doing it or you're not doing well, they're not just going to keep you in for the sake of it. So I think it was like a bit of both. We definitely got that opportunity with that bit of luck. But then, you know, the onus is on yourself as a player to kind of stay there.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, once you're there, that's the hardest time to stay there, and you've got to fight off competition. Like you were a youngster trying to take someone's place, you always has people underneath you trying to take yours. So definitely on that, mate. In terms of your training, and there's two parts to this question. Coming through the Centre of Excellence, when sort of, if you can remember, when it changed from all the emphasis on development and then it was about winning games, and then also in terms of when you're in the first team, what did your structure over the week look like?
I think in terms of like where you're saying, you know, when did it change from development to wanting to win? I think like as soon as you sign for a club, you know, whether it's your Sunday pub team or a professional club, as soon as you play or you're training for a team, signing for a team of any level, you're competitive by nature. So I think even like as a kid going in and signing year 5, 10, 11 years old, every game you go into, you want to win, and you're kind of building up to wanting to get a contract, wanting to play professionally. So I think probably from the coach's point of view, they look at it from more, you know, to develop you as a player, trying to get a winning mindset into you. But definitely as a player, you just want to go and win every game. So I think that's kind of, you know, any player will say they want to go and win. No one would go in thinking, I just want to have a good performance. I don't really care whether we get beat. I don't think that really happens in football, competitive sports. So yeah, that element, I think it was just always, you know, as soon as you're playing a match or training with a team, you're trying to win and trying to be better. And then, you know, it was a massive difference from, you know, going from like youth team football to men's football. I went on loan when I was in the youth team. I didn't actually play too many youth team games for Brighton. I went straight on loan to Worthing, who were playing like in the Ryman equivalent of you know, of that time. And I think that definitely helped, just playing men's football week in, week out, as opposed to youth team football. And that could have, you know, helped me breaking into the first team as early as I did. Because, you know, like the physical aspect was like probably the biggest difference from, you know, obviously going to youth team football.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was the biggest change? Obviously, we've seen it in playing semi-pro, people coming from professional clubs and academies now and getting their experience in non-league, and some of them can't cope with the different aspects, the environment, the pitches that they're playing on, the facilities that they're training in, the physicality, the obviously the amount of games in a week and stuff like that. So what sort of stood out for you was the biggest benefit from going on loan? And also, what was the biggest change for you, an eye opener, going from somewhere like Brighton, who obviously had nice facilities, and going to Worthing, who now have lovely facilities, but I imagine it wasn't always like that at Worthing.
No, not back then. Not back then. Yeah, no, as you say, I think just going to men's football, it was just like the pace of the game. You know, you had players, you didn't have half a second on the ball, and if you took half a second or a second on the ball, you're just getting kicked in the air. When I went there, so I'm a left back. I went there and played centre midfield. I was lucky enough when I actually went there on loan. Jamie Lawrence, the old Bradford player, he was there playing centre midfield with me. So that was really good. You know, he's obviously like a tough guy anyway, and so you know, at that time I learned a lot just about being physical. And I think looking back now, I probably still wasn't as physical enough, you know, when I was at Brighton playing in the first team. And it's something that I definitely improved on, you know, as the years went on. But I don't think that I actually started to kind of fully learn how to be physical and aggressive properly until I left Brighton and signed for a lower club. So that's kind of, you know, something that I look back on, and that's why I really think that going and playing like men's football from as young as age as possible, no matter what level you're at, is just so much more beneficial, you know, than kind of sitting in a youth team or a under 23s, under 21 squad for years and years. But yeah, it was definitely just really the pace of the game. Going back to your question, the pace of the game, and just being physical and being aggressive.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, like I said already, biggest challenge for young players coming out of academies and professional environments. That's the biggest thing, and it's a big shock to reality. Well, an eye opener to reality, rather. That it's not all pretty like academy football and youth football.
Yeah.
But no, so obviously when you spent how many years at Brighton, obviously in the first team before moving on?
So I've done like just over 2 years. So I played like 2 seasons, and then left like the following pre-season really.
To go?
I signed for Crawley Town. We played Crawley in the Sussex Senior Cup in the final. Like at the end of the previous season, we played them in the final over at Eastbourne Borough's grounds. I knew that I was being released from Brighton before playing that, so kind of in your head you're already thinking, you know, you're gutted to start with, and then you get over that and you think it's kind of one last chance, you know, to win something with, you know, the club that I played at for years, but also it's another opportunity just to play against another club, you know, with their manager and coaching staff looking at you, and you never know who else is going to be there. So I kind of went into it with that mindset. We won the game. I did, you know, had a good game, and then Steve Evans, the Crawley manager, rang me literally the next day and asked me to go and have a chat with him up at the stadium the following week. So my kind of like turnaround at the time was fairly quick. And, you know, I could have maybe spent some more time over the summer and tried to speak to other clubs, gone on trial, etc., etc. But at the time, I thought it was the right thing to do. Spoke to a few people. I thought it was the right thing to do. Crawley were in the conference at the time. Wasn't far from Brighton where I lived, so everything kind of fitted in quite nicely. So I kind of fell into that straight away.
And in terms of obviously when you knew you wasn't getting offered another deal at Brighton, and like you touched on, being there for so many years and going through the full spectrum through the youth teams up until the first team, mentally, how did that sort of did it have an effect on you mentally, and how did you overcome that and deal with it at the time?
Well, I think at the time, you know, you're gutted when you go up for the chat, and you're kind of being told, right, like, thanks, you know, we're not keeping you on, blah, 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 blah. at the time you kind of just sit there and you're a little shell shocked, really, and then you walk out of the meeting. Like any meeting, walking out thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd have said that. I wish I'd have said this, etc., etc." And yeah, I remember still like young, sat in my car outside the training ground, and it's just a strange feeling, thinking, the best part of 12, 13 years have just passed at this club, and then like from now, your whole life's going to change, really. So obviously, like that first afternoon, that first day, I was gutted. Sad. You don't really want to tell anyone about it.
What sort of support did you receive? Any from the club, obviously, or I imagine you would have got very good support from family and friends. But what about any from the club?
Yeah, from the club you kind of get, they say, that they'll help you find another club, etc., etc. If you need any advice, or if you want us to speak to any coaches, put you on a release list, etc., etc., circulate that to other clubs. They say that, and you shake their hand and kind of get on with it. They're not going to go out of their way really to do any favours for you. But yeah, I kind of went out of it. I think as a person, I don't really hold grudges. So yes, I was gutted. Yes, I didn't agree with the decision. I didn't want to be released. Thought I should have stayed. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, I think after that first day, then you just kind of get on with it. And there's that thing, you want to prove them wrong, but also I just, as a person, don't really like to dwell on things. But yeah, at the time, I didn't really want to speak to many people, because you're telling them that you've just been released. So it's obviously not a nice conversation. Obviously, I told my immediate family, probably spoke to my best mate, and that was it really. And then just kind of get on.
And then moving to Crawley, obviously signing for them in the conference, and without you knowing at the time, but good things to come.
Yeah, definitely. I loved my time at Crawley. It's probably my most enjoyable spell of football. Signed Steve Evans, big Scottish manager, absolute lunatic. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time. But yeah, it was a great time. I remember the first day. So I've gone up and signed. Obviously met him a couple of times. First day that I've turned up to training, turned up to the stadium, walked past his office, like I said, morning, blah blah blah. Carried on walking. He's called back, shouted back. I've popped my head in his office, and he's just started effing and blinding. Going, "Who do you think you are? Big time effing Charlie. You're not at Brighton anymore. Who do you think you are walking through this way?" And I thought, is he joking? And no, he was going mental. I shouldn't have gone into the club that way. It was the only way I'd ever gone in there to sign. But yeah, and then so I was thinking, flipping heck, what have I got myself into here? But then 5 minutes later, he's in the change room trying to have a laugh and a joke with you. So yeah, it certainly made me grow up. I remember, my first game, coming after the game, and he's absolutely battering me. Basically said, "I don't want you to play a short pass unless you're in the opposition's half." So yeah, it was a big adjustment from what I'd come from. But as I say, you learn with it quickly. There's no one there putting their arm around you. You just, you're there. They want to win, and that's it, really.
And even that. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Even with that, obviously touching about growing up and obviously coming out of an environment where you're used to and going into somewhere new. How did you, obviously, apart from meeting a manager who sounds like he's coming or going, and you don't know which sort of happy manager or angry manager you're going to get? How was it, obviously, going into a new changing room and meeting new teammates and staff and stuff like that?
It's like anything, first day of school, really. I think like when you first get there, you're a little bit apprehensive, a little bit nervous. I was still pretty young. I think the only thing, I was always, I was never big time. I never had a big ego or anything like that. I was always pretty level-headed, but I was confident, that I was, a good player. I could hold my own. So I kind of had that going into it. So, I wasn't nervous about going and training and actually playing football there. you know, I think it's one of them. As soon as you go in and meet all the other lads and have that initial catch up, initial first training session, then it's, you know, it's pretty much like any club, and everyone's eager to impress. So yeah, I think you kind of have those nerves as you go in, and, you know, for the first time, but, you know, the nerves are a good thing, really, make you perform better. And then, yeah, I think everyone, you know, once they go into like a football environment, they know what they're going into. Everyone has good banter, good laugh, and yeah, I think everyone gelled pretty quickly. Steve Evans, for his, you know, an absolute lunatic, he would get together good squads and good people, and that is one thing that, you know, really stood out. He was passionate, and he was a nice guy, especially off the pitch. But on the pitch, you know, training at matches, you know, like everyone that he got through the door were all, you know, good people, good players, and it almost made like the team ethos and the team bonding much better, because at the time everyone, you know, feels like they're against the manager because he's such a lunatic, and it kind of like gelled everyone together. So yeah, no, it was good.
Decent, mate. And even with what you just said about at the start, when you mentioned Stephen, obviously when he killed you on that first game, there was a key message, and maybe he could have told you that just before you started that game about not making the short pass in your own half. It might have helped you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Tippy tappy used to call it. Tippy tappy.
I hear that a lot now where I'm playing. But yeah, no, and then obviously after Crawley, let's talk about some of the successes at Crawley. Obviously going to Old Trafford.
We had a really good FA Cup run. Got to the 5th round. It's obviously well documented. 5th round away at Old Trafford against Man United. You know, obviously unbelievable. I played in, you know, a lot of minutes in like the build up through the FA Cup run. I didn't actually play at Old Trafford, which was, you know, obviously unfortunate for myself, but still a ledge experience. We went up there for a few days. You know, Crawley's nicknames, the Red Devils, obviously the same as Man United. So the Sun newspaper, you know, had a big interest in that. So they'd follow us up there. You know, we had a few days training up there, and Paul Ince and people like that were coming along to training. Had a tour of Old Trafford, etc., etc. So it was just like an amazing experience.
And even with that, how did you find obviously getting to Old Trafford and not being able to play? Obviously that must have been a mental strain within itself as well. Yeah,
it's obviously, you know, gutting or whatever, but you just get on with it. We'd had like a good run. We had a good squad. Dean Howe was playing like left back ahead of me, but I got on really well with him. It's just part of the game, you know. It was my 3rd season at Crawley. I played a lot of games there, enjoyed my time, had a good promotion when we won the conference. I broke into the England C squads like whilst playing at Crawley. So, you know, my time there was really enjoyable and really successful from like a personal point of view. You know, that FA Cup run, just being a part of it was amazing. Just being able to warm up at Old Trafford and you know, kick a ball about at half time on the pitch, and, you know, and stuff like that, and meet their players and everything after. Of course, I'd loved to have played or got on, but yeah, no, wasn't to be.
Yeah, and then obviously dropping into the non-league scene where we first met, obviously at Sutton United, and I know you were playing for Gateshead before that. Sort of, how did you find that? Because you're still relatively young when you obviously did drop into the non-league levels.
Yeah, it was difficult. You know, when I signed for Crawley, you know, I wanted to almost use it as a stepping stone to get back into the league. 3 years there, ended up, you know, getting promoted from the conference, and then not getting another contract after that. You know, just things happen, circumstances at the time. And again, you know, it's disheartening at the time, but you kind of just get on with it, really. You don't really have time to stop and, you know, kind of dwell on it for too long. And yeah, I was never a person, as I said before, I didn't really want to go around trialing at other clubs. I like things pretty structured. I'm a little bit OCD with stuff like that. So, you know, I like to get sorted kind of at the start of the summer rather than just wait and see see what deals you can nick here and there. So yeah, I kind of just got on with it, really. You know, I'd have loved to have played more games in the league, but everywhere I went after that, I enjoyed. Yeah, and it was just kind of part of it, really.
And then obviously coming out of full-time football, and I know that we were not full-time, but 3 days a week at Sutton. How did you find it? I know that you then obviously got into teaching and got a degree in teaching. So again, with all these different transitions, how did you and your well-being and obviously financially, how did you get through all of it?
I think at Sutton, when I spoke to Paul Doswell, again, like another like great time that I enjoyed at Sutton. You know, yourself, and still speak to a lot of the boys that I played with there. Obviously worked with Marvin Williams at Sutton as well. And yeah, I just enjoyed it there. I think it was a big selling point that we were training 3 days a week. So it's kind of, you know, pretty much full time anyway. You're kind of missing out of one day of training. Financially, it's pretty good there. So yeah, it was again just kind of a natural step to take. It was back closer to home. Obviously, I was at Gateshead the season before up in Newcastle, which again, I loved it up there. But you know, I was ready to come back down south. So yeah, it was good. Trained.
When you were away in Newcastle in Gateshead, like you just said, obviously you were a little bit older at the time, and you were always close to home at Brighton and Crawley, and then obviously you decided to come back close to stay nearer home when you come to Sutton. So how was it being away? I know, like I said, I know you were little bit older then, but still you must have missed home. And I know that you were with your missus in Newcastle. And so how did you find it all?
Yeah, again, just kind of like it all happened so quickly after Crawley. I went up. The manager at Gateshead rang me pretty much a few days after I'd left Crawley. Went up with my missus to have a look round. You know, just showed us the area, etc., etc. And I just thought it was just like a fresh start, opportunity to live somewhere else. Hadn't actually been with my missus for that long, so that was a little bit of a gamble, but yeah, we got through it. But yeah, no, I loved it up there. It was wicked. It's like a cold Magaluf, you know, like just everything, the nightlife, the people up there. It was wicked. And yeah, Gateshead, obviously, you know, they've had a lot of difficulty since, but it was a great club. It was really well run. Did everything as professionally as they could. It was full time, playing in conference. So again, yeah, I really enjoyed the time there. I think I only came back once that season. There were a few other people who had signed, you know, from London way, so there were a few Southerners up there. We kind of stuck together a bit, really. But yeah, no, it was good, enjoyable year. But as I say, I think after that season, I was happy to come back. Yeah, I was happy to come back closer to home.
And obviously, I know you personally, and obviously we grew to be good mates when we were at Sutton and started K&R initially together as well. And you're always quite headstrong, and I think people would take from this, listening to you, even with the few setbacks that you had, and you keep saying that you just got on with it. And whereas a lot of people, I know that when I got released by Mill, or even that they're just 16, and it took a big knock on me, and I fell out of love with football. But you don't really seem like that. You seem like you just used to, well, you use every experience to make you stronger, and you just got on with it and carried on and pushed forward and believed in your ability more than anything else.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think I always, I believed in my ability, didn't dwell on things. But I think, you know, I don't know. I feel like I've always been pretty mentally strong. At whatever club I've been at, I've never really minded getting rollicking at half time or after a game. I kind of just, take it, say your bit if and when you need to. Don't be a pushover. You're allowed to have a voice, but just having that respect, really. I'm quite a respectful person. I listen to what's being said, but yeah, I think you just have to, at the end of the day, you just have to get on with it. No one's going to kind of do it for you. And I'm glad now, I played for a lot of clubs in the end, really. But, you take a lot from everything, from each club. Gateshead was a great experience. Take away the football, just living at the other end of the country for a year. It was wicked, and I had a good time. Sutton, again, meeting new people, working with other players, coaches. I think you just have to take it in stride.
And yeah, with all that, obviously you've packed up playing now. I think this would have been the first season that you haven't played. I know that you finished with Worthing, obviously somewhere there where you started, if you like, your senior career before you played professionally for Brighton. So yeah, just obviously, do you miss it? What do you miss about it? Any regrets?
What do you miss about it is probably, the typical, old stuff,
listening to my banner.
Yeah, maybe not yours. But yeah, just like being around the lads, just knowing that every week you're going to be with like a big group of mates, like 2 or 3 times a week. There's that whole thing. And I used to love training, really, to be honest. I used to love going and training and running around like a headless chicken and just kind of like getting that done. I used to love that. And I like the structure of it as well. But I think, from transitioning to not playing, I think it was getting to the stage I was at the right time. Had like 2 young children, just wanted to spend like more time and start doing other things. It was kind of, I dropped down to a level where it's not about like money or anything like that. You're kind of doing it for the enjoyment. And I think I was getting to games and always giving 100%, but I wasn't leaving on a Saturday, and if we got beat, I wasn't going home and sobbing to my missus and letting it ruin my weekend. And I just thought that it's probably the right time now, to knock it on the head. And I haven't not missed football, but I've always had like a close group of friends outside of football. So, I never had everything in football. So if football was taken away, it wasn't life over. It's just other things, kind of start. And I think naturally I'm a sporty person anyway. So everything that I've gone and done since, in teaching and working with academies since, has still been in a football and sporting environment. So yes, I'm still around football clubs and football people. So yeah, no, I haven't had withdrawal symptoms yet.
So I know that my manager I spoke to you on behalf of my manager this season, trying to get you back for a little while. But yeah, no, totally understandable, mate. And I think obviously you know within yourself when it's time, and I think you sort of worked that out, and you're happy with your decision. But last question before we go to a quick fire, mate. Just what advice would you give any young players?
I think just the old ones, really. Like work as hard as you can. You do literally get one shot at it. A lot of like football and successive football is luck, but if you don't work hard and kind of like earn that luck, then I don't think it's going to come your way. I just think just doing everything as professionally as you can, because it does it does fly by. Whatever level that you play at, it does fly by, and you have like amazing memories from it. But just work as hard as you can at the time and know that you've given everything, and then you can't have any regrets. If you weren't good enough, then you have to take it on the chin. If you were and you have a good career, then you know that you did the right thing. But I just think, putting all your effort in, don't kind of half-heart it, and then moan, that it hasn't just come to you. It's not going to come to you on a plate. You do have to work for it. I think that's the difference. That's like the mentality side of things that's definitely changed, you know, since 10, 15 years ago, with the money and, you know, everything else that's like associated with the game now. So I think that, yeah, and the best advice really I think that I actually got from a manager was, you know, don't get too high after a win, don't get too low after a loss. So just try and keep level-headed. You know, if you win a game, doesn't mean you're the best player and you're going to go and win the league. If you lose a game, doesn't make you a bad player overnight. So yeah, just finding that happy medium.
Yeah, and I think that touches in what you just spoke about in terms of the mental side of it, and like we've all been there. You said it earlier. When you were at Worthing and you finished your career, you didn't have that where you were lost game and you went home and obviously you went talk to your missus, or like, well, I still get that. I get home after a loss and look at myself first of all and see what I could have done better, but also then if someone asks me about the game, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. And I think that is right, especially for your mental health in terms of not getting too high and too low, and like you said, finding that happy medium and finding that place that you can get to. And like you, it's probably going home to see your kids. It sort of takes everything else away. So that's something definitely for our players watching, young players and old players, sort of find something that you can go to and resort to when you are a bit down, and or someone to talk to rather. But no, brilliant, mate. Well, listen, just a little fun quick fire questions. This should be interesting. Best player that you've played with, and best player you've played against, and just a little why.
Oh, that's a hard one. Played with, probably at Brighton, Bobby Zamora probably. Speaks for itself really. He was just, when he was at the club, he'd literally score every week. But he would score like such important goals. So he was in the first team when I was coming up through the youth team, but trained with him a lot, played a few friendlies and pre-season friendlies with him. But yeah, just, he was like a great guy, great with the youngsters. But yeah, he would just score. You know he'd score, and you know he'd score important goals. So yeah, probably Zamora.
And played against?
Played against.
Who's giving you the toughest time?
No, I'll leave that one. But a bit of a name drop. When we played a friendly against Arsenal up at their training ground once, and their strike partnership was Bergkamp and Van Persie up top. So that was obviously unreal. We only got beat 1-0. But yeah, that was obviously in not even first gear probably. But yeah, that was amazing. You know, playing against those two.
Best manager that you've worked with or played for?
Best manager, probably Steve Evans or Paul Doswell. I'd say Steve Evans was a lunatic, but I had the most enjoyable 3 years there, and 100% the Sunday 7 a.m. training sessions after a game, or the back at 7 p.m. to watch the game after a match. You know, they're definitely, looking back, are almost great memories now. So yeah, I'd say him or Paul Doswell was good as well.
Any particular reason for Dos?
Probably his man management is probably the complete opposite to Steve Evans. He could lose his temper, but on the whole, you know, he knew how to speak to players. He knew how to get the best out of players. And he was just, you know, a good laugh with it as well. That was obviously unreal. We only got beat 1-0. But yeah, that was obviously in not even first gear probably. But yeah, that was amazing. You know, playing against those two.
Best manager that you've worked with or played for?
Best manager, probably Steve Evans or Paul Doswell. I'd say Steve Evans was a lunatic, but I had the most enjoyable 3 years there, and 100% the Sunday 7 a.m. training sessions after a game, or the back at 7 p.m. to watch the game after a match. You know, they're definitely, looking back, are almost great memories now. So yeah, I'd say him, or Paul Doswell was good as well.
Any particular reason for Dos?
Probably his man management is probably the complete opposite to Steve Evans. He could lose his temper, but on the whole, you know, he knew how to speak to players. He knew how to get the best out of players. And